Hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. Today on rSpace, a final thanks but no thanks that's as cold as a prenup clause that sealed the deal. It's the kind of goodbye that leaves no room for second chances, no rewrites, and absolutely no alimony checks. Wife wanted a divorce to spend my money with her affair partner. My prenup left her with nothing. I, 33 male, have been married to my wife, Brenda, 31 female, for 7 years. We built a beautiful life together. We had an incredible wedding, bought a house together, and everything just felt right. I did my best to give her everything she needed, and she made me happy too. I've got to start this post by pointing out the fact that I've done really well for myself in life, career-wise. I still consider myself to be young, so I'm proud of how far I've come. It's relevant, I promise. I majored in civil engineering in university, but software development has always been my real passion. I worked in multiple tech startups right from the start when I was in high school. Most of them ended up crashing and burning, but I didn't really care about the money. I was enjoying working on interesting projects. I was mostly just sad that a lot of stuff I worked on would never see the light of day. I got lucky with one of the startups I joined when I was at university. I could tell it was different because we had a focused founder who assembled a team of serious people. Long story short, the product exploded, and within 2 years after graduation, we got acquired by a big name for a huge sum. My equity wasn't massive, but it was enough to set me up with my first real windfall. I'm talking low 7 figures. That gave me the freedom to experiment and work on my own ideas full time. I tried out a bunch of different projects and businesses. There were some failures and a few small successes. Eventually, I launched something that really took off. It's a boring piece of software, but it solved a real pain point for small businesses, and it started printing money. I focused my energy on expanding it, and soon I was running a successful service that kept me very comfortable. I met Brenda while I was still a year into building the company. At the time, it hadn't become the moneymaker it is today, but I knew it had huge potential. The two of us had hit it off, and to her credit, she never really seemed to be majorly interested in my money. When my lawyer suggested a prenup, she didn't even blink. She said she understood. We both got our own lawyers to review it. I thought it was pretty fair. It said she wouldn't get any of my business assets, but it laid out a generous flat rate to be paid to her in alimony. She thought it was fair as well, but she signed it, no pressure, and no bad blood about it. We had a beautiful wedding and lived a happy life together. My company continued to grow, and I recently started helping her develop the interior design business she's always wanted to run. We were still working on the marketing strategy, but I was already fishing around for interest in my network to find her first clients. I knew that a big pioneer client could do big things for exposure and revenue. I'm not one of those guys who's always buried in his work. I take my work-life balance pretty seriously, and I always find time for her. We traveled together, and I surprised her with gifts and encouraged her to grow her business. Nobody's perfect, but I can admit that I was a pretty dang good husband. So imagine how surprised I was when she sat me down and told me she wanted a divorce. It came out of nowhere. We were just sitting down having breakfast. There was no fight or argument before. We'd even been to her favorite restaurant just a few nights before. Everything seemed so perfect that I actually had to try to figure out whether she was joking. Her face was dead serious though, and this wasn't something to joke about. I knew she meant it, but I still asked if she was serious, and she nodded. I felt like I was out of breath. I tried to stay calm and I asked why. She looked away and mumbled that she wasn't happy anymore and she needed to find herself. That felt like a non-answer to me, so I asked her again. Eventually, after a lot of prodding, she admitted that she didn't love me anymore. That hurt, but I preferred the honesty to vague lies. But I felt like she was still hiding something. So I asked if there was someone else. The way she avoided my gaze made it pretty clear that there was. I told her that I wanted us to be completely honest with each other so that we could know we did our best to save the marriage before jumping to divorce. I must have worded that badly because she got a little irritated and said that she'd thought about it a lot. Then she admitted that she'd been dating another man for the past 8 months. She actually used the word dating. It hurt to find out that she was cheating on me. It hurt even more to see how seriously she was taking it. It also hurt that she was so honest that she didn't have an issue admitting that she had been having an affair for so long. I reminded her that she was a married woman. There was no dating other men. There was only cheating. She just shrugged and said she knew that, and that was why she was trying to do the right thing. It didn't feel like the right thing to me. The right thing would have been to try to fix things before they got out of hand. The right thing definitely didn't involve cheating on me. The shock of her sudden announcement disappeared while I started to absorb the fact that she'd been cheating on me. She could try to act noble by coming forward to admit it herself, but that didn't change the fact that there had been 8 months of deception. She told me she loved me. We'd slept together several times while she was out there sleeping with someone else. I remarked out loud that I'd have to get myself tested. When she rolled her eyes, I lost my grip. I didn't scream at her, but I ranted. I asked her if she really thought that I was overreacting because I wanted to look out for my health after she'd slept with someone else. She apologized, but said she didn't appreciate me treating her like she had a disease. I countered that I didn't know if she had a disease. Neither of us knew if she'd picked something up from her other man. She didn't get to act offended like I'd said something wrong when she was the one making a joke out of our marriage. Maybe it was my tone or the harsh words I was throwing around, but she started crying. She said she just wanted to follow her heart and make herself happy. I let her know that I'd help her out with that, and she'd be hearing from my lawyer soon. I made sure she moved out of the house that same day. There was no way she would sleep under the same roof as me after admitting that she'd been sleeping with someone else. She was his problem now, so she could go and live with him. She didn't want to leave at first, but I insisted that I wasn't going to have her around. I told her I wasn't going to leave my own home, and I strongly implied that I'd make her miserable if she stuck around. She was the one who had someone else to run to, not me. She got the message and left. The house felt oddly empty after she left, but I didn't have much time to dwell on it. She'd left me with a lot to do. One of the first things on my list was to get myself tested. After that, my lawyer started processing the divorce for me. Brenda called me 3 days later, and she spoke very carefully, like she wasn't sure how to bring up what was on her mind. She started off with small talk, asking if I'd been eating and taking care of myself. I knew she didn't really care, and I asked her to get to the point. She paused for a while and said she'd been reviewing the prenup. She said she didn't realize the infidelity clause would completely cancel the alimony. There was silence while she waited for me to respond. I knew she wanted to make an exception for her. Instead, I just reminded her that she'd had her own lawyer check it out and she'd still signed it. She agreed, but said it was before we knew how things would end up. I asked how that was my problem. The prenup was supposed to sort things out for both of us in case things didn't work out. It wasn't written to protect her if she decided to cheat on me, which she had. Did she think she could blow up our marriage, walk into another man's arms, and I'd keep taking care of her? She said what she'd done wasn't really cheating, since it wasn't just sex. She wanted to start a new relationship with this man, so it wasn't an affair. It was moving on. I laughed and said she could call it whatever she wanted to. What mattered was what a judge would call it. I asked her if she really thought a judge would buy her story of moving on. She didn't answer that, and just kept insisting that it didn't count as cheating. There's no question about the divorce going through, and I have no intention of releasing her from the infidelity clause. But her reaction has me wondering if I'm being the a-hole. I've talked to a few friends, and they all think it's fair, but I just wanted to get an outside perspective to be sure I'm looking at this from all angles. So, am I being the a-hole for upholding the prenup? The fact that she was dating someone else for 8 months while still married and sleeping with you is a harsh betrayal. No sugarcoating that. And then trying to spin it as moving on after the fact? Oof. You were right to bring up the prenup. It's there for exactly this kind of situation, and she signed off on it knowing what it meant. You're absolutely not being an a-hole for holding her to the terms of the prenup. Update. Wow, there was a lot more interest in this story than I expected. The general opinion seemed to be that the infidelity clause was fair, and she was just trying to get it in my head so she could play me. That's what I thought too, and I never really planned to let her out of it. I just wanted to hear from outside opinions. There were a few commenters who were convinced that I'd written the prenup to deceive her. I don't know where they got that idea that I'd slipped the clause in without her knowing. I mentioned it in my original post that she'd gotten a lawyer to go through it. We'd discussed the presence of the infidelity clause, and she'd agreed that it was fair. She probably thought it would never apply to her at the time. I don't know why she didn't consider it before she started dating another man. Maybe she'd forgot about it, or maybe it's just that people don't think straight when they're cheating. After she called me, I didn't have any actual proof of infidelity apart from what she admitted to me. If she denied the affair in court, then she'd get away with it easily. So I hired a private investigator and tasked him with gathering proof of her affair. That turned out to be one of the best ideas I'd ever had. Within a week, he'd given me a full report on them. Now I know the guy's name and face, but more importantly, there were photos. So many time-stamped photos of the two of them meeting up in public and at his place. There weren't any pictures of the two of them being explicitly romantic, but what was there was enough to establish a relationship. There were a lot of photos where they were obviously out on dates, some where they were holding hands, and a few photos of her entering his home past 10 p.m. or leaving very early in the morning. When I showed the PI's report to my lawyer, he said it was good enough proof of an affair. At the very least, it satisfied the definition of an affair that we'd laid out in the prenup. That was good enough for me. Knowing that the prenup was going to protect my assets made the whole process a lot easier for me. I couldn't say the same for Brenda, who was obviously going through a lot. She tried to act composed in court, but it was clear that she was panicking because things weren't going her way. Her lawyer tried to argue that we didn't have enough evidence to prove infidelity in the strictest sense. He pointed out that we had no explicit photos or confirmation of anything physical. My lawyer shut that down fast and brought up the language that had been agreed upon in the prenup. The photos easily proved an affair based on those terms. She denied telling me that she was dating someone else, but the evidence made that inconsequential. Once the judge reviewed the PI's report and saw the pattern of behavior laid out by the photos and the timestamps, it was over for her. The infidelity clause of the prenup was upheld, and she lost her alimony. But that wasn't all. The prenup declared everything to do with my business as being my personal assets, so she couldn't get any of that either. She only got her car and other property that we agreed belonged to her, as well as half of the money we kept in any joint accounts. She also got a one-time payment that had been laid out in the infidelity clause. It wasn't a lot of money. It wasn't close to what she would have gotten in 1 year of alimony if she hadn't cheated. Back when we'd drawn up the prenup, my lawyer had advised me to add it to make the infidelity clause fairer. He said it was more likely to keep the judge from overturning it. I was glad to see he was right. But it wasn't enough for Brenda. She actually cried in the courtroom. I didn't take pleasure in it, but I didn't feel bad for her. I was mostly just embarrassed that she'd made a fool of herself and dragged me into it. But she hadn't even reached her lowest yet. She came down to see me a week after the divorce was finalized. I didn't want to see her at first, but I thought there was no harm in talking to her since the divorce was official now. She started off with small talk again, asking how I was doing. I told her I was doing great. It wasn't a lie. The divorce had been tough, but I'd gotten over it pretty quickly. I'd never believed in wallowing in my feelings. I just focused my energy on work and spent more time on my hobbies. That made the adjustment a lot more bearable. Brenda wasn't doing well at all. It had only been a week since the divorce was finalized, but she looked miserable. The stress of the divorce process was finally catching up with her, and it showed. I still couldn't make myself feel bad for her. If there hadn't been cheating involved, we could have had a less eventful divorce. We probably wouldn't be friends or anything, but she would have gotten her alimony, and I wouldn't have fought it. Instead, she cheated on her way out of the relationship, and now she'd gotten what she deserved. She asked if there was any chance of us revisiting things. She said she wasn't looking to get back together right away, but she just wanted to talk. I said I wasn't interested. She already had a man, and I wasn't the type to make a move on another man's woman. She winced and said it wasn't like that. Her voice was shaking when she admitted that she had made a mistake. I wanted to take some satisfaction in hearing that, but I knew it meant nothing. I was over here, and besides, I already knew what was going on. She only cared about the money. The alimony she'd lost out on was a generous amount of money, in payments set to last for a few years, and she probably thought she could get some easy living out of it. Now she was ready to throw her new man away just to get back to the stable lifestyle she'd turned her back on. Clearly, he wasn't a provider on the level that I had established for her daily life. Too bad for her. I asked her if the relationship with the new guy was over. She hesitated at first and admitted that things hadn't worked out. He changed after she was officially divorced. She said it was like he hated her all of a sudden. Eventually, he just packed her stuff and told her to leave. She said he didn't even give a reason why. I could make a good guess. He thought he was going to be scoring a divorce with a fat alimony check coming in regularly. Instead, he got damaged goods with a one-time payment that would just cover living expenses. When he saw that his get-rich plan was no good, he bailed on her. From what I've read here too, it's a lot more fun to deal with a woman who you're not officially tied to. You get the benefits without any of the responsibilities. And now that she was alone, she was circling back to me, hoping I'd take her back. I told her I could see through her claims of just wanting to talk, and there was no way we were getting back together. I'd supported her and given her everything, and it wasn't good enough for her. She had said she wasn't in love with me before, so where did the love suddenly return from? She needed a different man, but she still wanted my money, and now she didn't have either. She looked shocked. She asked if I could just forgive her. Not to get back together, just to forgive her. I told her I wouldn't forgive her, but I would move on. She wasn't going to be a part of my life anymore. After this, I'd block her number and I wouldn't answer the door if she came knocking. She'd chosen separate lives for both of us, and that's what she was going to get. She started crying and tried to get me to reconsider, but I stonewalled her. I'm familiar with how people like her work. She would take the smallest opening and use it to crawl back into my life. I wasn't going to give her the chance. When she saw that she wasn't getting the slightest response from me, she gave up and left. I didn't get up from my seat to see her off to the door. I think the fact I didn't miss her stung her as badly as the money. She was probably holding out hope that she still had some sort of power over me. Maybe she thought she'd just come over and her tears would make me have a change of heart. No chance of that. I've always been a good guy to her, but once I'm done with something, I'm done with it for good. I didn't get to where I am today by looking back. The first thing I did when I heard her leave was block her phone number. Something about that felt final, like I was shutting the door for good on a chapter of my life. 5 years of marriage down the drain is no joke, and it wasn't easy to adjust, but I did it. She was out of my life, and I hadn't lost too much of what was mine. There's been no more contact. I meant it when I blocked her. She's gone from my life completely. The people who knew me closely were on my side, and I simply cut ties with the ones who said I was too harsh on her. I wasn't going to listen to anyone telling me to just talk to her if they couldn't relate to what I was going through. She just didn't get my funding. Actions have consequences, and now she's living with hers. She picked a real winner there, someone who's just as opportunistic as she is. Now stripped of her financial safety net, she's crawling back to you, hoping you'll open the door and let her slide back in. No chance. Not only did she trash her marriage, she tried to trash her financial security too. Her crying in court and afterward? Save it. That's not remorse. Blocking her number, cutting contact, and refusing to entertain her attempts to just talk are exactly what she deserves. She made her bed. Now she has to lie in it. You protected yourself, your assets, and your peace of mind. That's not harsh. That's smart. What are your thoughts on prenups? Let us know in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.